afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People often ask me, since I've been working in aged care, about culturally and linguistically diverse older people, why don't they access aged care services more? Why don't they just learn English? And they still ask me, why don't they assimilate? In the next 12 and a half minutes, I hope to give you some answers and to provide a better understanding of ethnic aged care and the dilemma of bonding and bridging. Ethnic Communities Council of Victoria is a peak advocacy organisation. This presentation draws on my policy work at ECCB and on my PhD research at the University of New England on assimilation and adaptation of long-term migrants in Melbourne in 2007. That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to show you 5 slides. I'll talk about bonding, bridging and linking. I'll give you a snapshot of 2 models that I developed in my doctoral research. One is a settlement adaptation model. Another one is an identity formation model. James Jupp and Michael Klein, in their new book, Multiculturalism and Integration, published this year, said, it's time to move beyond talking about the definition of multiculturalism, and that we need to understand how the policy developed and the effect on people. There are the stats: 40% of Victorians, 19% of Australians are over 65, compared with 11% of the Australian-born population. That means pretty much every second or third person in aged care that one comes across will be from a non-English speaking background. Now, in the last couple of days, we've heard a lot of our speakers tell us stories about their migrant history, about their growing up as migrant children and how their dads came here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the policy context of that and their lost hopes and dreams and how the policy influences the effect of their homelands. In my research I interviewed about 70 people who came to Australia in the 1950s and 60s, the mass migration era. They are the older, culturally diverse people that are now going into aged care, and they lived through both the assimilation policy and the multicultural policy, which were actually opposite policies. And we still carry the legacy of the assimilation policy in our attitudes. Assimilation was promoted in the 1950s and 60s as the Way of Life campaign, the WOL campaign. It was understood differently by different groups of people, and it was an extensive grassroots community campaign. Now, some of the stories that I collected in my research demonstrate some of these government policies. I'll tell you one. It's 1950. A young non-English speaking woman is going to be naturalised. She's really excited, puts on her best dress, off she goes to the ceremony. She says the Oath of Allegiance, she receives a copy of the Bible with a picture of the Queen in the front, and then the VIP starts to make his speech. And this is what he said. I want you to forget your language, forget your culture. You're in Australia now. You have to be the same and not different. Tears started to well in her eyes. It wasn't such a good day after all. Naturalisation to make people the same and not different was part of the assimilation policy. Fast forward to the 1960s, another story. A teacher contacts a non-English speaking family and wants to do a home visit. In those days, there were no parent-teacher interviews, no contact with the school. The family thought, what an honour. They baked a cake, got out their best china, to jeopardise their children's relationship with the teacher. They have to go to school every day. So they said, we'll try. Of course, they couldn't do that. Monolingualism was part of the assimilation policy. It was about making somebody out of nobody, because when they arrived here, they were considered nobody. The message that culturally diverse people got at the time was there's no support, no services, and no cultural rights. Way of life is assimilation talk, and we still hear that term sometimes today. So what the people did was bonding. People in ethnic communities started to do insider looking. They started to build strong internal ethnic ties, and this went over 10, 20, 30 years. Assimilation was a flawed settlement policy. In my research, I collected hundreds and hundreds of stories. I analysed them, and they clearly fitted into these 9 ways of thinking about adaptation. This is a settlement model of what pretty much any migrant goes through when they come to Australia. I'll give you a snapshot of it. I can't go through it in a lot of detail. When people come to a new country, they go through problem solving. Problem solving is a kind of decision making. And my research showed that when things move rapidly and when there is a lot of government pressure, certain government policies, people make less good decisions. There's no such thing as a good or a bad decision. You make better decisions and worse decisions. So what people did when they came, they did assimilation, they did establishment thinking. They got jobs, built houses. Their children went to school. They learned enough English to get by. They learned to speak Chakasa. Chakasa hammer, Chakasa screwdriver mate. Factory English. They did community building thinking. Lots of activities, building strong ethnic organisations, re-establishing their religious organisations, Saturday schools, aged care facilities. It was all about hard work, volunteering, work developing niche markets in the Australian economy, a great contribution to the Australian economy. They did not build silos. They were not being divisive. They were bonding internally as a result of the pressures of the policy of the day.